What's up, everybody? It's your boy Marvin Melendez. You're listening to another episode of All My Friends Talk, where I talk to all my creative artists, advocates, and all around amazing friends. This episode was so much fun. I haven't laughed so hard, I don't think. I haven't had so many jaw dropping moments in the conversation. This conversation, I get to talk to Jimmy Riffle. He is probably most notably known from his TV show Gator Boys, where in the show they would actually catch and rescue wild alligators, and they would also kind of wrestle them by hand. How he got started, where how he got into the show, and what he's doing now. He's doing a lot of cool creative things now. So be sure to listen all the way through and go check him out. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy. All right, Jimmy Riffle, how are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
Good. Hey man, I want to say thank you. I can't tell you how much I geeked out when you agreed to do this podcast. I was so excited. Um, it was yeah, I feel very, very honored and very excited that you're on this podcast. I've been a big fan of yours for a really long
I
time.
appreciate you having me on here. Very much. So,
Yeah,
like, share what I do. So,
good man. Yeah, because I mean, um, you're on. So for those who don't know you, you were on this TV show Gator Boys for a while. Is that correct? Um,
yes, I believe it was 6 seasons according to the network. When we were airing, the way they broke it up. But yeah, we had for 6 seasons and had a good run, and we were able to share some of our experiences and knowledge of what we did on a daily basis. So.
yeah, and then all right, so let's talk about what it is that you do. You are a professional Gator wrestler.
Yeah, so I grew up on the Indian reservation down in Hollywood, Florida, and I was
Okay.
very fortunate to find a zoo that allowed me to volunteer at such a young age. And what happened was I started like anybody else as a volunteer cleaning up all the poop and garbage detail and bathroom detail. And then it escalated into learning how to wrestle alligators, which I never thought in a million years that's where I was going to go with my life. But I was very fortunate. I actually got to have hands-on experience, and this is also the same place that I've met most of my longtime friends. And I've been very fortunate on that. This is where I met Paul as well through the Native Village.
Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't. I feel like I think you guys talked about mentioned that in your show. Yeah. So, how old were you when you first started wrestling alligators?
I was at the end of 11 years old, 12 years old, roughly. And, I started training how to wrestle at that age. My parents didn't like me too much. They kicked me to the wolf. but, uh,
So-
but they had to sign those cool waivers, basically if I got dismembered, hurt, killed, it wasn't their fault. So, you know,
that's crazy. I feel like that is the most Florida thing I've ever heard. Right? Like because I grew up in Florida. I grew up in Gainesville, Florida. And there, I think if you grow up in Florida, like into adulthood, you don't meet. There's no chance that you're not gonna meet somebody or know somebody who is either missing a finger or has a crazy scar from an alligator. Like I feel like that's just I can think of four people off the top of my head that I personally know that are either missing a finger or have like a big scar on the arm from hunting alligators or just getting too close to them. So the fact that you're doing it at the age of 11 is kind of wild and a little crazy, but in a cool way.
it was. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I wasn't like hardcore wrestling alligators at 11, but I was kind of, my training wheels were on and I was learning the basics on how to work around them and catch them. And, I didn't really get into hardcore, I guess you can call it wrestling alligators until I was probably 14 years old, where I got comfortable. But, even doing it for that long and, I'm 35 now and I've been doing it my entire life. You still don't know everything. You're learning things daily, new things daily. And I have gators do things to me now still that I'm like, holy cow. I'm like, how did that just happen? you know but I mean, if you think you know it all, you need to get out of the field that you're in. So
That's why. Okay, that's interesting because I've seen. I mean, it's embarrassing to say how much like I binge watched this show. So like, but I've seen so many clips of you, and even like when you're catching, because you catch. Do you still catch wild alligators?
So I don't trap alligators. Paul still traps down in South Florida. I actually live near the Ocala area now in Florida.
Okay.
I'm actually up. Sarah and I, my dad, we live up here. We're working on opening a small wildlife park near
Okay.
Ocala. So we'll talk about that in a little bit if you want
Yeah.
to. But
Absolutely.
you know, I totally lost train of thought, man.
What was saying? I was saying. Oh, I was asking if you had still trapped them, but like even
Okay.
like watching your show, you said that you don't know everything, but there's times like I remember my favorite catch. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm really fangirling right now, but like my favorite catch I watched you do, and I was gonna ask you something about this, but there
Uh-huh.
was one catch you're doing, and they said, "Hey, be careful, he's gonna jump at you," and you're like, "Oh yeah, I know, I got it, right?" And like you're trying to get him to jump at you for whatever reason or jump in your direction, and it seems like you know exactly if you touch him this way, he's gonna spin one way, or if you touch him on the head, like it feels like you have this natural instinct of knowing exactly what they're gonna do and when to do it.
Basically, I'll go back to your first thing. I don't trap alligators. Paul does.
Yes.
He does that still down south. I rescue alligators in the sense I take them from other trappers and I give them a forever home, or I find places to take them. In that aspect, what you were just saying, uh, when we're working around these alligators, this is something that I've been doing, like I said, for my entire life. So, I'm able to read the animal pretty good. But on the flip side, you get alligators that we consider and we call thinkers. They're thinker gators, and they start reading us and they pick up on our movements and how if we touch them on the left, we want them to spin to the left. But if we touch them on the right, we want them to spin to the right. I've had alligators where I touch them on the left, they spin to the right automatically. They trick you. And you got to be very careful because I've been bit that way as well. So, like when you said I was trying to get him to jump, there's a certain thing you can palm the front of the jaws, and a lot of times that will trigger him to raise up and then he'll jump, and then I was trying to get him to do that. And of course, we're trying to also tire them out so we can catch them safely and get them out of there.
Gotcha. So, okay, I know I'm jumping around like ahead of schedule, but
You're good. You're
let's
good.
talk about something because you said that that you don't trap them, that but you are giving them a forever home, and you're opening up like you said like a wildlife exhibit. Is that correct? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, so
So
we're in Anthony, Florida, which is just out of Silver Springs,
all right,
and we are actually in the process right now of we're in construction. We're building a small educational, by appointment only wildlife park. It's going to be a small scale place. It's not going to be on 30 acres. We're a 5-acre piece of property that we purchased, and we're basically doing quality over quantity. We're going to have a decent amount of animals, but we're looking at building more habitat enclosures for the animals that we're going to have. A lot of plants, natural ground, a lot less concrete, and we want these animals to have a forever home, with us. My roadshow company is called Scales, Tails, and Teeth, and that's where we travel the country and do our shows. So we named our wildlife park Scales, Tails, and Teeth Wildlife Park. So, it
makes
kind of goes
sense.
thing, and we already own the name, so it was just that easier for us to transition into the wildlife park just at the end of that. So, but we're gonna have animals we have alligators, crocodiles, we have lemurs, foxes, we have emus. We have plans to bring in a couple different type of animals in the future, but I mean, we already house well over 100 animals here at the property.
Why do it? Because I mean, you're obviously very talented. I mean, I don't know if do you still because in this show you had a restaurant. I don't know if you still have it or not, but like you were, or you could be. I feel like doing a lot of things. You're obviously very talented, very skilled. Why do the habitat now?
That's always been my life passion, is to have my own wildlife facility, wildlife park. And ever since I can remember, when I started volunteering at the Native Village, the zoo I volunteered at in Hollywood, Florida, I always told my parents and, people growing up, mentors, that I'm eventually going to have a facility of my own. And here we are, you know, 25 years later, and it's still a dream that we are almost to make it a reality now. And
Yeah.
I never gave up on this, and it's been close, where I wasn't going to get out of the animal business per se altogether, but the dream of having a facility almost became to the point where it wasn't going to become a reality. I've hit so many dead ends and so many you know just deflections that caused me to almost get off track. And luckily,
Wow.
fiance, she pushed me. My dad, my parents pushed me, and to this day, I thank for that pushing. Close friends that I've made along the way, don't give up, and that's what it's all about. And I've been very fortunate that we're gonna do it. So
That's awesome. I didn't know that. I feel like a lot of people could look at you and say like that you had a dream. You had a TV show like where you were like the star of. Like it wasn't like you're back on like you were every episode front and center. Almost every scene. And I feel like a lot of people would say like, oh, like Jimmy had the dream. Jimmy made it, right? And then here you are like, no, like the dream didn't stop there. You kept pushing for something else, something more, and like all these years later, I feel like 25 years is not a long time to chase something and to not lose hope of. That's
I, I lost hope. I mean, don't get me wrong, I lost hope, but luckily I was able to stay on track, and things happen. Like the restaurant, that was never planned. That just kind of
yeah.
happened. That was a part of my life that I would never do again. That was, in my opinion, it was a learning experience, but a big mistake on my end because I knew nothing about the restaurant world. And
Mm,
I decided to get into it because it sounded like a great idea at the time. And I lost my butt on that, that whole,
really?
I didn't make a penny off the restaurant. And when I'm telling you, not a single cent, I didn't make a penny. I invested a lot of money in that place and lost my butt on that. So,
Wow.
now, our business endeavors that we look at going and, moving forward with, we try to iron it out and know what we're getting ourselves into before we actually jump into it now. And, the show that was Gator Boys just came along. Paul and I shopped around for many years, putting footage out to different people. And I would say it was probably roughly 8 years that we shopped. And in this 8 years, we signed contracts with production companies for basically a year that we were stuck with them, and it went nowhere. And we did this a few times. We finally was like, you know what, we're done trying for the show. And I kid you not, man, I mean, a friend of ours that already had a TV show, basically they approached him and was like, listen, we want to try something with a TV show, and he sent them our way. And I think
Wow.
2 weeks later we signed the contracts with Discovery. So
Wow. Why did you want to do the TV show?
honestly, it was we really loved what we did, and we loved our job and our daily lives, and we thought it'd be cool to be able to share that on a national level, let people know what is going on in the state of Florida. And like I said, we didn't expect it to escalate into what it did. Because like when we were filming and goofing off, we were just having a good time. We were just doing what we did on a daily basis, and we put it on camera. And but like I said, we shot for 8 years, and we had a lot of people interested, but it never went nowhere. And then it just took the right moment for somebody to be like, you know what, I think it's time. I think this is what we're looking for. And they signed us, and we took off with it.
Gotcha. And then you said something earlier that the way it's structured was 6 seasons. Were you guys not shooting that long though?
No, we were shooting a lot, but the way that they broke it down into episodes, they broke it down, I think 10 episodes per season or something like that. So
Yeah.
we were shooting 20 episodes, but they were breaking that up in 2 seasons, if that made sense. So like
Okay.
confusing, like we shot 20 episodes we thought was going to be a season, but they broke it up into two, I believe is how it worked. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's how it worked.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so, well, so rounding it would have been like around 3 or 4, but they just made it extended longer. Gotcha,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, how much of that show was scripted?
Uh, all the alligator stuff's real. Everything catching them. I mean, the danger levels, every one of them was real. When we went up to certain homes, we did have to script some of it to where, the people, we had to find people to allow us to talk to them, because the problem is when you have a permit issued by Florida Fish and Wildlife, the permit is for an alligator in a lake. So say there's 100 homes on that lake, not one particular is where we're kind of going. We're roaming that entire area. So the network,
Oh,
our producer would show up and we would find a house that allowed us to kind of enter into the backyard. And, basically they would be the ones on camera. And we would talk to them and ask if we could use their backyard and look for them. And they were all for it. They got to get a little bit of, TV time. And, so it was kind of a good flip for that. So,
oh, that would be fun. There's one catch. Can I ask you about a specific catch on that show that I was always curious about?
if I can remember.
All right, so there's one episode, and I've seen this clip so many times, where you're catching this giant alligator, big bull. Do you remember this?
Mississippi. Yep.
Yeah, and then so there was one shot, and it lasted for 2 seconds, and I have a feeling you're not gonna remember this. I know it's a long time ago, but like it looked like Scott was holding. Was there ever time that anybody had like any like it almost looked like he's holding a shotgun when you guys were holding it? Do you remember this at all, or could it have been a net gun or darts or anything?
The only catch I remember where guns were involved was, I believe it was Paul and I. This was not Big Bull. This was in Mississippi, though, I
And the
believe.
guy who was pointing a gun at the gator.
The AR or something like that.
Yeah.
Us personally, I don't think we've ever had a gun. I can almost guarantee we haven't had a gun on site. So.
Sounds good, because it was flashing. We're like, was that a gun? And I was like, I don't know, but we just kept rolling with it. So that was something I always wanted to ask.
If it was
Uh,
if it was the actual Big Bull catch, there was no gun involved whatsoever with Big Bull.
so you guys, I mean, you guys were catching them by hand. You had a very strict no kill policy,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
What is your thoughts on people, on trappers who do kill for either food sources or for like I guess population control, things like that?
It's a bit of, you have to have it. I mean, I have really good friends that are trappers. They process the alligators. I don't dislike them any less. They're really good friends of mine. Some of them I consider family. And I've known these guys pretty much my entire life. And it's more of a heritage for them. I mean, one of the trappers we're really good friends with, his dad was one of the original starters for the alligator nuisance program. He was one of the original trappers in the state of Florida. And he, our buddy, he is the trapper now, kind of took his dad's place. And that's a tradition for him. That's heritage. That's, he's following in his dad's footsteps. You got to realize a trapper makes no money from the state. They make a very small portion, I think. And like I said, don't quote me on this, but I think they make like $25 per animal. That's all the state pays them. They could go out to one location 20 times to try to catch the one alligator. And, they catch them on the 20th time. So you figure that's way over $25 worth of fuel and your time.
Yeah.
A regular trapper, they have to sell the alligator for their meat, their hide, the whole alligator to profit and keep doing what they're doing. And, us, luckily we were supported by a network, so we could continue the process of the rescue and, still see, I do educational shows. That's another way I bring funds in. So, I worked at Holiday Park, we were volunteers, but, we still, we had to do things to make money. We couldn't just, live and never make a single penny. That's not
Of
possible,
course.
you know? So, I mean, it's kind of, there has to be population control, just like any type of hunting. Alligator hunting, it needs to be here. Deer hunting, there needs to be deer hunting. There needs to be hog hunting. If you didn't, we would get overran by these animals. So it's actually, I'm trying to think of there's a saying that goes with it. It's kind of your necessary evils, to
Yeah.
have with this, which sucks. But because I wish I could take in every alligator, but
Yeah.
there's just no way I can do that. We just don't have the room for that.
That's what I was wondering about because, like, if in that show you guys talked about if they couldn't fit in at Holiday Park, there's another place that you would take them to. But then I was always wondering, it's like, well, what happens when there's too many alligators there? Like there's only so many people who house alligators in so much room. Like, and obviously, I don't want people to go out recklessly killing alligators either, but also I want things to be safe. So I never understood how that would work if there wasn't that.
Yeah, luckily there's quite a few facilities that are willing to take in, alligators in general. They have what we call like breeding ponds or natural lakes, canals, that they have in their facilities. Like Everglades Outpost down in Florida City is where we brought most of our alligators that we caught. They went to Holiday Park, then they went to Bob down there at Everglades Outpost. That's where they ending up and stayed for the rest of their lives, unless they donated them to other facilities, which most likely has happened. But you have a large area, you can put hundreds of alligators in there, but you got to remember there is a pecking order. You have dominance just like any other animal. You have a bull alligator that is considered the alpha per se in an area, and they're going to fight it out. And there's nothing you can do about that with having a large area. You will have alligators fight and kill each other, which is unfortunate, but like I said, you're giving these animals the opportunity to live out the rest of their life, instead of being turned into a handbag, a pair of boots, or a suitcase. So
Yeah.
I think it's a fair trade, just unfortunately not all of them end up making the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who listens to you, watches your show, or like even the I've seen you do some stuff on YouTube. Like you obviously very much care for these animals that you take that come into your facility. Obviously you really enjoy it. I don't think you'd be chasing this dream for 25 years if you hated it, right?
Exactly.
But like, do you ever get any feedback from people who are anti captivity or say like like or think that's cruel or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we do. I mean, anybody in the animal business, we do get, backlash from different things, and I always go back to, most people don't care about reptiles. If it doesn't have fur, most people don't care about them. So that's my segue into getting into what we do. We run these type of rescues because nobody really cares about these type of animals. We're advocates for the animals that we have decided to defend. There's plenty of dog rescues out there, but think about
Yeah.
it doesn't exist. I have a handful, but I'm in this field, so I come in contact with a lot of people with the same interests of what we have. But these people that believe that the animals are better off dead, than in captivity, they're 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 more wrong than anybody. I mean,
Right.
you're putting that animal to death, you know, and why? Because animals live longer in captivity if they're taken care of correctly, given the right diet. Animals' life expectancy, you know, extends, a lot of times 15 to 20 years on what their normal life expectancy is in the wild. And if it wasn't for zoos or the private sector, which is like me, or a lot of my friends, you wouldn't have, a lot of these animals that have been brought back from, close to extinction or being on the critically endangered list. people in the zoo world breed animals and release stuff back into the wild. So if you didn't have these programs being done in captivity, we would have a lot of animals on this planet that would be extinct today in 2021.
Can animals be released back into captivity? And I think I
What do you
watched.
back in the wild?
Yeah, or I'm sorry, yeah, my bad. I said captivity, but yeah, from being in captivity back into the wild. Like I always think of like I don't know, like I remember watching what was that documentary about that came out a couple years ago about SeaWorld, Blackfish, and how they wanted all those the killer whales back into. I know that's a different ball game, right? But like they wanted them to go back, and then I read about things like, well, a lot of the ones that went back didn't do well. Can alligators go back into the wild after being?
Yeah, I don't want you to take what I said, differently. So basically, when
Yeah.
I say release animals back into the wild, a lot of the adult animals, no, you can't release a lot of those back into the wild. They're already habituated. Now there are people, friends of ours, that are actually been traveling to different places of the world and actually doing negative reinforcement to crocodilians in general, and actually trying to reverse the process of what people have caused, because people are the cause of most of these problems. And a lot of times that's when you feed these animals or you have contact with a wild animal. You're making and you're causing that animal to lose that healthy natural fear they have of man, of people. And the problem is say you fed an animal, say you fed an alligator marshmallows for years and years and years. That animal is like, okay, well, you know what? This is a lot easier to catch food this way than actually hunting. And what our friends are doing is, instead of that animal coming up and it's always a positive thing, he gets a marshmallow, he goes and swims on his way. Instead of getting a marshmallow, you approach that animal real fast and scare him. That animal's like, wow, I've never had that happen to me before. That's a negative reinforcement. So they're trying to do certain things to see if they can reverse what has been happening. And when I'm talking about animals being released back to the wild, I'm talking about the young of a lot of these animals.
Gotcha.
These animals that are born in captivity, they're raised a different way than that animal, the parent, has been in captivity. You're not feeding from your hand. You're feeding through a pipe. That animal's not realizing where the food's coming from. So eventually, when that animal gets to a safe size, they can be released back to the wild if possible. Right. And that there's a lot of different ways zoos have learned to be able to release animals back into the wild, which is a pretty awesome thing. Because like I said, if this was not happening from our zoological facilities across the world, a lot of these animals would have been extinct. I was just watching a thing on the panda bear, and the panda bear was close to extinction, and it's still very much critically endangered. But I believe these panda bears the adults were sent from, I believe it was, I don't know if you saw the same documentary. It might have been sent from, where are they from? Japan, China?
I think so. I think they're from China.
Yeah, China. So they were sent from China to a zoo. I think it's the LA Zoo, and they were sent back to China because the numbers have climbed, better than what they were. The offspring, basically any of the animals born in captivity here in the States is property of China. The babies are sent back to China. They're not, so that's the type of breeding programs that I'm talking about, that these zoos work with each other. I mean, the zoo in China sent a breeding pair, here to the States, and the babies were going back to China. I mean, that's a big deal, that these animals are getting a second chance at life. And they should, because the human race is who caused, these problems. So
does it bother you when you watch animal documentaries that catch fire that are like captivity is bad? Like what was the one that came out last year? Tiger King? Did you see it?
Yeah.
And like the whole thing was like, look how terrible this is. Did it bother you to see like that there wasn't enough conversations about like positive things that you're doing, your friends are doing?
Yeah, I mean, anytime anything like that comes out, there's always a negative, backlash on it, especially when there's a lot of, uh, discriminating evidence supposed, with that situation. But, bottom line, not all facilities, operate in these manners, and I don't know, I didn't know him. I've never been to the facility he was at. So I can't speak from nothing, so I'm not going to say anything on it. I
Yeah.
saw what I saw on Netflix, you know what I'm saying? The Tiger
Right.
King.
Exactly.
It's not, that's what we were made to see, who knows what the actual, did he do stuff shady? Probably,
Yeah.
but everyone on this planet has done shady things. Just because you're not into animals, you saw that little bag of weed when you were 16 years old, what made that right? you know,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, I mean, you're going to get critics in any field that you're in, and unfortunately, these animals, they're our kids, and we're doing everything we can to take care of them the most proper way we know how. And it takes people to support us and keep us going and moving in the right direction. So,
uh, Gosh, your stuff is so cool though. Every time you post a picture on Instagram where it's like, guess what animal we got in, I'm always so excited. And I don't know. I'm just a big fan of everything that you guys do. Uh, let's talk about something I really want to know. And we mentioned a little bit earlier. You said you've been bitten.
yeah.
So wait, do you have like a crazy story incidents? Like also, I don't know why lately, and this is something I should try to figure out. I have this fascination right now of on YouTube. I keep binging like alligator shows gone wrong, right? Like where like someone like is there's one where I watched someone get bit and the gator started to roll and with his hand in his mouth. And I'm like, oh, that hand's going off. But the guy like wound up rolling with the gator to like so it wouldn't go in the wrong direction. I was like, that was so cool. But like, or before I talk about your bites, I want to know: do you ever see things like that on YouTube or other facilities? Like, oh man, like I wish I could help them do this better, or I saw that one coming from a mile away.
Yeah, I mean, I've been places watching, and I try not to be a critic, because everybody's learning in their own pace, in their own way. And, I've seen people, and I'm not, I get claimed the best alligator wrestler, all that stuff. And I don't agree with that. I know hands down a few people that, you know, are really good at handling alligators in the sense of alligator wrestling. Alligator capturing and wrestling is different because alligator wrestling, you're doing dangerous stunts, you're doing stupid things. When you're capturing alligators, you're still in harm's way, but you're not throwing dangerous stunts. So
Okay.
when I've gone to facilities and seen people wrestle, they made it unscathed, they didn't get hurt. But I pull them to the side and say, hey, listen, make sure you tuck your thumb. The thumb is the most common appendage bit on a wrestler when you're wrestling an alligator, because you think about it, your thumb sticks out. So when you're working
Gotcha.
with the animal, the alligator constantly sees your thumb. So, if you keep it tucked, it's hidden. So that's what I'm taught. I was taught from a young age, but I see wrestlers, thumb out, and I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna get his finger ripped off. And I try to have that conversation, and I've had people totally ignore it and get their thumb bit, and I had to pull the alligator off of them. And I'm
Oh
not a type.
snap!
Yeah, I'm not like I told you so, but you know, I'm just using my experience to try to keep people safe if that's the
Yeah,
direct career they want to get into.
that's crazy. How hard is alligator wrestling?
I mean, honestly, I don't know. How tall are you?
I'm 5'6", 5'5", really.
5'6". Okay, so you're not very tall, but I'm going to be honest with you. You, with the proper training, you could wrestle an alligator. It's no matter the size. I've had friends that are 5'2" and they wrestle. You just need to learn what style works for you. You can't sit there and try to manhandle the alligator. You have to flow with the animal, and you basically just go with the animal. You don't try to force things. And that's one thing that I've learned growing up, with alligator wrestling. You kind of just got to go with the flow of it. You can't just
Yeah.
sit in there and just shake around and do all this, because I mean, it's going to happen naturally, but you want to try to make it seem as smooth as possible, because when you're wrestling alligators, you're not hurting that animal. You never have,
Yeah.
you're subduing the animal down. Native Americans, they wrestle alligators. That's how they turned a profit. That's how they started making money back in the day. I grew up on the Indian reservation. So that's the trade that I learned, when I was young, was a traditional way of wrestling alligators, and most people look at it and they're like, oh my God, you're jumping on them. It's like, yeah, but we're showing you a culture. We're showing you what is a big part of Florida's history. And,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize that how much, the Seminole Indians are a huge part of Florida's history. And, living in the Everglades. And I mean, it's the story is crazy, and I have really good friends that are tribal, and, learning how to wrestle alligators was definitely one of the highlights of my life. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. I'm trying to get out of wrestling more so now than, before. And it's more so because I'm getting older. I want to do more of the conservation side of things.
Gotcha.
But trust me, I still do wrestling shows when I have to. If I have a gig come up that I have to do a wrestling show, I'll get in there and do it. But I'm trying to kind of slowly just push my way out of it. And I have, I don't do wrestling shows as on a regular basis that I used to. So
Interesting. I think the most wild stunt I ever saw. There's a clip of one of your wrestling shows, and Trey from Gator Boys also he stuck his foot inside the gator's mouth.
yep.
Was that real?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I feel like that's the craziest thing I've seen. That and Paul getting bit in the head. But so like it's because he bites the foot. Like it's not like I don't know. I
You have
feel like the
another.
foot could come off. What?
You have another one.
Yeah, another one. That's wild. All right, let's go back to this. All right, craziest bite that you've had.
I've had two, pretty bad bites. One of the most memorable bites. I was just turning 18 years old. I was at the Native Village, and I was doing a alligator show for a baby shower. Okay, no joke. No joke. Okay, I know you might be a redneck, right? Okay, so I was doing a wrestling show for the baby shower, and I was wrestling an alligator named Hollywood. And this alligator got his name Hollywood because he was flown to Hollywood, California. He was in movies. I don't know if you're familiar with a movie called Wild Things with Kevin Bacon and stuff.
I've heard of it. I've never seen it though.
So this movie had Hollywood and Longjaws, another alligator that was in the movie. So anyways, that was backstory on the alligator. So I'm doing the show, and I grabbed him by the mouth to get over on his back, and he shook real hard back and forth. And when he went one way real far, he threw out my hands out of my reach, and he came back and grabbed me in this right thumb, but he bit the whole side of this hand.
Oh, snap.
Hollywood was about 8.5 to 9 feet at the time. And he grabbed onto my thumb and he dragged me down onto the ground. And my mentor, Skeet, the one that owned Native Village, he thankfully he came running in to help me because my spotter that was in there. So your spotter is your backup. He ran and jumped the fence and left me. So
why?
He freaked out. He panicked. He didn't know what to do. So he left. Next thing you know, I'm dealing with this on my own for a second, but then my mentor Skeet jumped in, got on the back of the animal, and this gator's shaking with me. He's trying to roll. And okay, so this alligator had me for 8 minutes. Okay, 8. Couldn't get him off. The owner was about to cut the jowl muscles because he could not get this alligator off of my hand. And the kid finally came back, the one that ran away, and he brought a crowbar and we pried the mouth open, and I got my hand out.
Oh my gosh.
It
Did it
was,
hurt?
what's that? Did it hurt?
Yeah.
Nah, no, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, it hurt like hell. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. During the actual moment, all you feel is pressure. You don't really feel the pain. And so I'm wearing a blue shirt now. I used to wear a lot of Indian patchwork, Indian
Yeah.
clothes. And the patchwork that I had on, it was a blue shirt like this. It was just covered red. You couldn't see the blue from the blood, from the shaking.
Oh my gosh.
So I mean, you got to realize 8 minutes of him just thrashing me back and forth and get this, my thumb was not broken. I don't know how. I drank a lot of milk, so I think I have strong bones. So, luckily, I just had some bad lacerations, puncture wounds. It didn't get infected. I was in the hospital. I waited in the waiting room for a couple hours before they even saw me when I went in the hospital.
No way.
Yep. And this is pre-date Gator Boys. This is way before Gator Boys.
I feel like you coming in with saying I got bit by an alligator, they're gonna move you in right away.
Oh, I had arguments with them. They called security on us because I asked them, do I have to physically bring the alligator in here to go in to see the doctor? And they're like, security. And I was like, okay, I'll go sit down. As I'm bleeding all over their floor in the hospital, and they're not doing anything. But
that's crazy.
It was a serious bite.
Yeah, but I got bit by a dog once. I got saw in like 10 minutes. I don't know, just weird. I like I said, at the intake, they're like, "How?"
It was
like,
what's your...
No, it was half pit, half lab. I was breaking up a dog fight, and I got in the middle, and it bit me. And so in my intake, they said, "How much do you weigh? What's your height?" And I was like, "I'm 5'5", and I weigh too much." And the nurse did not laugh at that joke. Let me tell you. I was like, "Oops." So anyways, that's my bite story. What's the craziest bite you've seen someone else do?
I've seen a lot of people get bitten on, the hands, thumbs. I've had a couple friends seriously injured. I was not there for them, but I had one friend. He had his whole bicep ripped off, pretty much, literally ripped off.
Gosh.
And they saved his arm. They wanted to amputate, and they saved his arm, which unbelievable. But when I can't explain to you, when I'm saying it tore his bicep off, like imagine here, all the way gone. I mean, this was gone. I mean, it was nuts, and it was disgusting. But you know what, though? I mean, he's probably one of the best wrestlers I do know, and if not the best, hands down, he is amazing when it comes to working around an alligator. And everybody makes mistakes. And at this moment, he made a very big mistake, and the gator just reached up and grabbed him. So unfortunate, but he was able to keep his arm, and he's pretty much retired now. He just lost a finger not too long ago, too, a tip of a finger. So,
oh my gosh,
needless to say, he needs to stop.
Yeah, he's hanging it up. I mean,
your sign. Yep.
You also say, I mean, I've heard you say before that, like, if it's not about like if you get bit, it's when you get bit.
Yeah.
So
it's a guarantee. If you work any field that you're in, you work with wildlife, you're gonna get eventually hurt or mauled or bit or attacked by something that you're working around. If you're a cook, you're gonna burn or cut yourself. If you're a carpenter, you're gonna hit your hand with a hammer. I mean, anything you do, if you're a mechanic, you can only imagine the injuries that you're gonna get.
Yeah.
So it comes with the territory. And like you said, it's not if, it's when, because it's definitely going to happen. 100%.
That is insane. What are some of the things that we can do to kind of help with animal rehabilitation?
Support your local zoos, support local conservation efforts that people are doing. We help out a lot. There's a thing called Croc Fest. It's held twice a year. It's a great organization. Myself, Sarah, a lot of close friends. We all are a part of this, fundraising events that happen twice a year. Money is raised to go to different crocodilian species around the world. And it goes to just in general, just helping biologists and people that try to, help that species in general. It's an amazing organization. You can check them up. It's crocfest.org, and you can look them up, and they're a great group of people. It's ran and operated by top zoological, people in the field, and they're great people, and every cent's donated to this, the cause. So it's a great organization. But that's the biggest thing. Get a part of things. Try to help out. Go support your local zoos that do these different efforts. It's important. And if you see garbage on the ground, pick it up. Don't step over it. It. People do it all the time. This is our planet. We only got one. And we're the cause for most of the problems on this planet. So the first thing that we need to do as a whole is, start repairing it. And that's by, picking up after yourself, and let's preserve what we have on this planet. And that's the most important thing we can do, for sure.
It's awesome. One last question before I let you go. One last question real quick. If I come visit you in Ocala, will you teach me how to wrestle an alligator?
I don't know if I'll teach you how to wrestle, but I will get you up and close and personal with some crazy animals, man. I promise you that.
Sounds good.
We have alligators from hatchlings to 12 and a half feet here. We have a critically endangered species crocodile called a Siamese crocodile, which belongs to a friend on loan here. But her home is here at Scales, Tails, and Teeth Wildlife Park. We're about to bring in a pair of broad snout caimans, another really cool crocodilian from South America. So, there's just, we have big plans, and we have a couple other animals. On my YouTube channel, I've been pitching it a little bit, but no one knows what it is yet. So I'm not going to give that yet. So once that video comes out, you'll see it, but it's a very uncommon animal found in the country. So, and it's not native. It is an African animal, but they're not common here in the zoological world, which is kind of cool. And we're actually going to get the privilege of housing one of these animals for some time. So we're excited about that.
That's awesome. And your habitat's open now, so if they want to make an appointment to come see it?
Not yet. With COVID and all that, it's been very tough. So we're trying to, last February was our last job. We haven't worked since last February. All of our shows were canceled. We just had our first gig last weekend with a local business here in Ocala. Luckily they booked us for a 3-day event. So that helped out, tremendously. But we do have a GoFundMe that we have up that is helping us. We haven't raised a lot. We're only at $550, something like that, but everything helps. And, if we could share that, that would be awesome if we could get that out there.
Yeah, I'll put in the link. Why don't you say the link, and I'll also put in the description. And then, anybody who will listen to this, go ahead and check it out.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds, I don't know the link. I'll have to send it to you.
Sounds good.
Long GF dot these things, but
absolutely. We'll definitely put in the description for you, man.
Yeah, just stay tuned. Follow my social media at Jimmy Riffle on Instagram. I post constant on there and updates on what we're doing. I never been into the story thing on Instagram, but I'm starting to play around with that a little bit. Sometimes it's easier found than actually posting. So, we're doing that, and but thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on here and letting me ramble on.
Awesome. Well, for all you listeners out there, go ahead and check out Jimmy, and then be sure to either download this podcast or subscribe to the YouTube channel. Anyways, I'm Marvin, and we're out.